Good morning, Kelly.
Good morning.
So this is our Sips of Sanity series for the month of July 2024. And the topic the guides gave us is seeking to understand the other.
Lovely.
So first of all, let's talk about who the other can be. Let's go into that first. So the other in this series can be a coworker, it can be your boss, it can be your kids, it can be a partner, friends, family, just about anybody. Because, well, we're going to find ourselves in different relationships in life where we think some people really get us, and at other times we think the other person doesn't at all. And I think what's important here at the very beginning of this discussion is to say that we come to all of these relationships with a desire to have the other person understand us and see us and value us. And sometimes we forget that we have the same job to do, that we have the same job in that relationship, and that instead we can become hyper-focused on the other person getting us. And we need to remind ourselves that we are there. Yeah, that is part of what a relationship is. But am I being present enough within myself to know where I'm at? Can I assess myself in that? Or can I, and in that, am I actually seeking to understand the other person?
Okay.
So what the guides did was they just sat down and said, this is the focus. So we've got some questions to go through today that helps us catch ourselves when we're doing that, and to be able to ask and engage the other person with questions that we ask in our minds of ourselves, but also of them out loud, to show that we are seeking to understand the other person.
Okay.
Yeah? Okay. And I know with your life coaching skills that you may change some of these questions, so please do.
Thanks.
Because I think that will help some people in that they look to you to hear how we may ask the question and how you reframe one.
Sure.
And I realize sometimes that when you go to do that, that may be my next question on my page.
Okay.
So it was tricky preparing this for me because I know that this is something that you do in coaching, is that you reframe questions to help people find their clarity. So I would write one of the questions down, and then I would say to the spirit guides, damn, you know she's going to change this.
Oh,
okay. You know she's going to come out with a better question, don't you? And they're like, yeah. And I want to say that out loud, because I found this difficult to prepare. Because I love that you do it, and I know that people thrive on that, and that's why we have more people, I believe, coming to Patreon, and why we have so many patrons that have stuck around so long.
Thanks.
I think is because they look to you to help them navigate some of the conversations and the understandings. So please go ahead and do that.
Thank you. I want to say too, like, what you guys did not see in this episode is me giving Karen shit at the beginning of this recording for getting better organized to explain this with more clarity. So I very much appreciate you saying that on record, because it's tough. It is tough to correct. And I know we've had this conversation on many levels before where it can be seen as criticism, but the intention is to bring more clarity for everyone involved.
Yes.
So that there is a better connection happening.
Yeah, and I think too this series could trigger some people into feeling criticized.
Yeah.
So when they listen to it, they might need to hit the pause button or stop button altogether and walk away for a good long time because they're feeling criticized about the way they think. They're feeling criticized about, Jesus Christ, can't I ever say something without being corrected?
Right.
And if they have people in their lives who do this to undermine them, then that's a form of verbal abuse. So sit tight, because if you get triggered by that, it may very well be that it's just highlighting for you another person in your life that does correct you, but does it to undermine your self-esteem and confidence.
Yeah.
And there's a complete difference. And that's something that I personally had to learn in life, in my relationship with you, was that I had been in a relationship with your father who undermined me purposefully to correct my language.
Yep.
Specifically when I was working with my clients, which he knew nothing about what I did.
Yeah.
And he would say, you shouldn't have said that. You should have said it this way, when he wasn't even present for the conversation and doesn't even have any of the skill set.
Yeah.
So it was completely done to undermine my self-esteem and self-confidence. So I saw it as a criticism of me personally.
Yeah.
And then in this relationship with you, and I'm pointing this out because other people may have the same situation, where now they're listening to this series, and it might be why they refuse therapy, and it might be why they refuse life coaching, because they're hypersensitive to any form of a criticism, and they know that a life coach and a therapist is going to make corrections, and that they may see that as more criticism instead of the support and the education, opportunity, skills,
Yeah.
tools that it actually can be, which is why the undermining of criticism is so devastating.
Yeah. Yeah. Everything that we do here, and if you have a good therapist, obviously, and coach, is for the sake of clarity, right? Because it's cloudiness that creates anxiety.
Yes.
Clarity creates relief so that you actually have the ability to move forward.
Yes.
So that's the intent today. And I love, we're chatting about how you've broken these questions down. Some of them are going to be self-reflective questions that you ask yourself. And I'll say this like in a kind of humorous way, to check yourself before you wreck yourself in a conversation, right? And then some of them are actually going to be scripts that you can say to the other person, scripts in the form of a question to seek clarity, right? From that other person, to invite them to provide clarity. So I'm excited for people to hear this. You also mentioned that you were going to do it in kind of like a rough outline, that there isn't any like 1, 2, 3 formula, because conversations are rough. We stumble through things. We get hooked on different points that people are talking about where we need to provide clarity, either because we've been triggered or because that other person lacks the communication skills. So these questions are going to flip back and forth between your scripts to say to another person and your self-reflections.
You've worded that really beautifully. And like, even when I was preparing it, I was like, oh, should I have categories? Should I have this and this? Like, should I be so organized that I can say the first 20 minutes is this kind of question and the next 20 minutes is this kind of question?
Half of us are cursing you for not doing that.
Yes.
But there are going to be individuals who need to go through this process of categorizing it for themselves. So
Yeah.
maybe they're already drawing segments into their paper and putting these questions, as an active form of listening, to be, really listening and saying, okay, that sounds like a self-reflective question. I'll put it up here at the top left.
Yeah. And then I know that there are other people listening to it that's not helpful, because they need this back and forth in order to have it applicable to an actual real conversation that they get in. And I think this is also reflective of who we pick as partners and who we work with and who we call our best friends and our children, because sometimes we have the scattered mind that needs to go back and forth and make it real in real time, because that's how we talk. And other people talk and behave in relationships where it's very categorized.
Yeah.
And it's like, and then they pick the opposites. They pick each other and then they fight.
Oh, yeah. Can I share
Right?
a funny example?
Okay.
And you know, and so do the patrons, that we love to make examples of ourselves so that people don't feel as criticized. They see us human, right? So I was camping.
Well, me anyway.
Oh, I make an example of myself all the time. We were camping the other day and we had a folding table, so a craft folding table that we brought out camping, and we had to get one of the legs folded down. And Kat was holding this leg. I don't camp, okay? And she's like, "Can you push this down?" So I'm pushing in a kind of downward motion to go, to pivot in a downward. And she's looking at me like she's ready to kill me. And she's like, can you push it down? And I was like, I am.
I get this.
Can you push it down? I'm like, you repeating the same instruction.
That's one of the comments.
Does not help me if you are trying to communicate with me that I'm clearly not doing it the way that you wanted. So I need you to reword this in some way. Right. And she was like, okay. So she like moves her chin. She's like, this piece here, I need you to push it down toward the table. And I was like, that's helpful.
Oh, down towards the table instead of down towards the ground.
I didn't realize that the leg had to actually retract inside itself before you actually folded is a different term than push, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, she looked at me afterwards. We were both ready to kill each other. And she goes, how could I have said that differently for you to have understood it better? I was like, thank you for asking that question.
Well, Kelly, you've just... Oh my goodness, excuse me. You just, well, we'll go through that again.
It was just like, there was so much tension. Yes. But we were both healthily communicating. Yeah. Just with this like, I want to kill you, but I'm not going to. And there was still kindness going on. And then the two of us could just kind of be like, okay, we're going to take a breath and like come back to this. Obviously, we both wanted to help each other. We both wanted to understand. We weren't trying to be stupid for the other person.
And we made each other angry.
And laugh.
And frustrated. Yes. Yep. And laugh and love and angry. And this is part of the point of the seeking to understand the other. Because if we grew up in families where we became afraid of anger because we saw violence or verbal abuse with the anger, then we get scared to even express it. Yeah. And we get scared even to feel it. Yeah. So we shove it down and then it just percolates through the relationship, the career, whatever it is. I won't go into all of them every single time. Yeah. But it's all of a sudden one day we quit. Or all of a sudden one day we're filing for divorce. Or one day we ghost the friend. And we don't even understand our own behavior in that. We simply think we're done with them because they pushed us. Or they did a particular thing that day. Yeah. And that was the straw that broke the camel's back. And we don't understand our own behavior of the suppression of the anger feelings, meaning that because we've suppressed that anger, that we stopped seeking to understand the other. Yeah. And that we can't even get there. Yeah. And this is where the other person can get limerent over us, or we get limerent over them in these circumstances, because we become hopeful that anger will go away and we can get back to a cozy feeling. And we know how to create them. Let's have sex. Let's eat. Let's drink.
Let's vacation.
Yes. Let's get in the hot tub. Let's play a game. Yep. Let's have company to divert our attention from the mess that we are in. So we do those things, not understanding the loss of connection that we had, and that we do the surface things instead. And we can do those for an entire lifetime. Yep. And die. And I'm not joking. And die. So the guides were like, okay, so let's come back. So Kelly, you told a great story and thank you for sharing it. Yeah. I hope that helped people. Stay tuned because, some of this can sound like it's pretty freaking heavy. So thank you for that. And you put in there some questions that are already in here. I'm not going to skip them. I might just repeat them again. Because some of them, I do realize in this kind of a conversation too, that some people listening to it may dissociate from time to time.
For sure.
And, that we just want to say that's okay. Be kind to yourself when you do, and come back when you can. Yep. Or book coaching with Kelly.
Thanks.
Right? Yeah. Like do something where you can actually go, okay, I do need to make an appointment with a coach or a therapist. To sit down and actually work through this. This is to highlight some of the things that you're doing and to give you a little bit of help today. A little breathing space. And don't forget your polyvagal breathing.
I'm trying to quit Otriven and I literally can't breathe. So, for all of you who have the ability to do polyvagal breathing exercises, do them for me. I'm going to try not to get dysregulated.
I'm on Otriven, so I will do the breathing for you right now. I so get this.
Okay.
Okay. So we're just going to start. We're going to jump right in, and we're going to start with some of the questions. Okay. So here's one of them, and you do your thing, Kelly.
I will.
Can you help me understand your point of view? I want to, so I can feel more in love with you, work better with you, be a better friend to you.
Cool. I will say this is probably way too wordy for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not criticizing it. I just want to say this because some of you, this is your intention and it's beautiful. And I've used a variation of this many, many times. When we're already in a situation where we don't understand someone and they feel not understood. Okay. So we're both on the same page about shit's not being understood properly. Mm-hmm. That is a lot of words to throw at someone who's already anxious. So I would trim that down. Can you help me understand your perspective? Lets them know you don't share it. I would tweak this to, can you help me understand where you're coming from? Can you help me understand the point that you're trying to make? Can you help me understand that position, right? So like just a shorter version is a lot better. I'll say if they look at you with a little raised eyebrow or it's like that you can feel any kind of defensiveness, hey, I'm asking because I want to connect. I'm asking, and I wouldn't say because I want to be more in love with you. You're indicating I'm not at the moment. I would simply say, I want to connect. I'm here because I want to understand, and leave it very simple sentences.
Okay.
And that's easier on the speaker too, right? Because that allows you to not have to remember so much wording. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Can you explain your thinking so I can understand your comment or your behavior or your decision?
Cool. Yeah. I do love this. Can you explain to me, how you got there? There's different versions of it, and I'm not criticizing it at all. Can you explain to me, can you walk me through your thought process? Can you walk me through how you got to this point, right? Walk me through helps them understand like you're taking them to each step or each stage, as opposed to, can you explain your thinking to me? A lot of people are going to get triggered by the word explain yourself, right? This is a school classroom situation that a lot of us feel like we're already in trouble when someone says explain. So how you've worded it can be helpful.
That's a good point. I had never thought about.
Yeah. You can see it in kids. You can see it. And then when you say like, how did this happen? They already think they're in trouble, that you're about to point out that it was their fault.
Right.
Right. So, hey, walk me through your thought process here. Well, I did this and then I did this. It's a much more inviting.
Well, and I like how you're saying, hey,
it's friendly.
Yes.
Hey, walk me through that thought process.
Right.
Because you're saying, take me along for the journey.
Yeah.
Instead of explain this.
Yeah. And I'm going to keep pointing out the word hey and the tone of voice, because it's indicating I'm coming towards you, or it's indicating, to me at the very least, an invitation, like that you're receptive.
Yeah. What you're hearing, I'm going to explain this to you. What you're hearing is a question mark at the end of hey. It's not a statement. Right?
Oh, I like how you're saying that.
Hey, there's a question mark where it's like, hey, I'm about to ask you a question. Hey, right? It's a thought. It's an idea. It's an invitation.
Oh, here comes the question.
Here comes. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Hey.
As opposed to, and I'll do this with a different intonation. Hey. Right?
Right.
Hey.
Perfect. And I think about employers. I think about people in authority. You said teachers. Anybody in authority, or using that to give the cue. I'm going to ask you a question. I'm not here to accuse you. I'm not here to put you on the spot or to make you defensive. I'm here to ask you a question.
Yeah. Now,
okay.
I want to say this. You can do this perfectly, and there will still be people who go to defense first.
Right.
And that's not a reflection of your tools.
Let's go to that later, Kelly.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Because there's a question about that after that comes in here to help people dig a little bit deeper into that one.
Cool.
Okay. And now I wanted to make the comment about, can you explain this, the very same one? I wanted to say something about this one that I really liked, that you didn't touch on, but I love what you did. Hey, can you explain your thinking so I can understand? Okay. Number one was comment, which I really liked. Behavior.
That's a trigger for a lot of people. When you say behavior, most people think like, oh, I've done something wrong.
Okay, so let's keep rewording it for people then to help them.
Choices,
What you did.
actions,
Yeah.
what you did,
Yeah.
what you were trying to achieve.
Yes, perfect. And the other one was decision.
Yeah.
Choice. So what we're doing here is we're just giving you some similes.
Yeah.
To kind of be able to play with that. And that's hopefully what you're doing is you're driving and listening to this today, or
Synonyms, not similes. Fuck. We're going to have an English class later.
Okay.
Okay, go.
What did I miss in your opinion that was important to you?
That's okay. That's convoluted because what that involves is probably summarizing first. You can't just sit there and say to someone, "What did I miss?" They don't know. They just explained something to you. How are they supposed to know what the fuck you just missed? So you're going to have to exercise other active listening tools, which involves, hey, can I summarize this for you for a second? Can I summarize what I heard or understood? After that summary occurs, then that question could be appropriate to say, have I missed anything?
Perfect. Okay. I knew you would take this to the next level of great.
And have I missed or misunderstood anything? Because those are two different things.
Yeah. Huh. And the original one was, what did I miss in your opinion that was important to you? Okay. So you've taken that and moved it in some different directions. That's great.
Yeah, because I think what you've missed or misunderstood, like I said, are two different things. And then if what you're trying to clarify is, what was the most important piece of this that you wanted to hammer home? That is also a third
Lovely.
item that might not be something you missed or misunderstood.
Yeah.
But you're just letting them know, hey, what's the point that you really wanted to make here?
Yeah.
What was the takeaway you wanted me to get from this?
Yeah.
Right? Because then they can really have another opportunity to be very understood or felt, right? Validated.
Yeah. Sometimes, just on a side note, outside of Sips of Sanity for a minute, this is just Karen talking to Kelly now. Sometimes I want to walk around with like a voice recorder and just voice record some of the ways that you ask questions and then like somehow download them into my own brain.
Thanks. Well, that's what coaching is.
I know.
I write them down, I send them in a PDF, and you memorize them.
Okay, okay, perfect.
Jesus.
So maybe I just really want to become one of your life coaching clients then.
You were my first.
True. Okay. All right. Oh, that made my heart. Okay, back.
Made it what?
It made it full.
Okay.
When you said I was your first.
Uh-oh.
No.
Speaking of understanding the other. Go ahead.
Oh, I know people. Anyway, let's get back to work, Kelly.
Yes.
Can you tell me what you are feeling as well as the facts that you want to share? Now, I realize some of these are super wordy.
Some of these are just not appropriate to the situation either. So you need two highlighters when you're listening to these to be able to understand within certain contexts, facts versus feelings are just not going to be important.
Right.
And there will be some people who are like, when are feelings not important? And then other people, when are facts not relevant? Right.
4s and 5s on the Enneagram.
Yeah. And our lovely 2s, but anyone, right?
Right.
So to be able to understand that question, can you tell me what you're feeling, could actually be a form of diversion in a situation where that is not relevant.
Right.
Right. So really make sure that you are thinking this through about what you're actually trying to achieve in a conversation, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Go ahead. Oh, you just took a big breath.
Well, I was going to say too, like, can you tell me what you're feeling as well as the facts? Like that is very robotic. And I would say that there's a different way to kind of warm up to those two questions and say like, hey, there's room for both facts and feelings in this conversation. I'd love to do both. right?
Perfect.
If that's relevant.
Yeah.
And it may be where you have to separate out in terms of context and say, look, there's a time and a place for both facts and feelings. And right now, facts is what we need to get underneath us.
Yeah.
Can we do feelings later? Because those are also
Oh,
important to me. I do want to know what you feel, but right now, facts is what we need to accomplish.
that's fabulous, Kelly. To be able to teach people that you can do both and that you don't necessarily have the time to do both at the same time.
Yeah. And if I reverse
Yeah.
this, right, that like when I'm comforting my 6-year-old, I'm not doing facts right away. You got to deal with the feelings first because the feelings are in the fucking way, right? But they're the most important thing to the 6-year-old. So if it's not life or death, dude, it's okay. You're having some big feelings. Let's just sit in them for a minute. Would you like a hug, right? Talk to me about what you're feeling. When those feelings when they reduce intensity just because of time and comfort and feelings of safety, then we can have a conversation about, okay, walk me through what happened.
Oh, that's so good, Kelly. Okay. Now I think you said this one a little bit earlier. Oh, yeah, you did in your example about the table with Kat. I'm just going to write down what was said. Just going to sound probably extremely wordy. Can you say it differently? As I am having difficulty understanding it the way you've said
As I am having difficulty.
it. Okay.
Fuck.
Let me finish. There's like way more to say here.
Can you reword it, please?
No, let me just get the whole
No,
thing.
that's how I would say it. Can you reword it, please? I'm not understanding.
Wait. Just let me say the whole
Please, yeah, go ahead. Like, entertain me.
I will entertain you and everybody else listening to this, apparently. Can you say it differently, as I'm having difficulty understanding it the way you have said it? So please don't waste your time repeating yourself. I need to hear it differently to follow your train of thought.
The lack of efficiency is fucking appalling.
I'm going to continue with some of these because I think we could wrap a whole bunch of them up. And steam, if anybody's watching this versus listening to it, there's steam coming out of Kelly. Could you break down your train of thought, and perhaps along the way I will learn something new and helpful?
That's so fucking rude. Hold on. Can you break down your train of thought? I am in agreement with.
Yeah.
And perhaps I'll learn something along the way. That is so fucking rude. Sorry, can you just break down your train of thought there? I'm trying to understand and I want to follow along.
Perfect.
Hello?
Well, I don't know. I think the next one is going to get chopped to liver too.
Let's go.
I'd like to you to repeat what you told me so you can correct what I am misunderstanding. I'm open to hearing that. And I when the guides explained the way they worded this one, it was from that place of being able to say to the person, I know I am misunderstanding. Yeah. Please help me catch where I'm misunderstanding you.
Yeah.
It was breaking it down to say, I need... What the... Apparently, Winston has an opinion.
Winston just stuck his ass in Karen's face for anyone who's
He
just
did,
listening.
which
Okay,
was so fun.
Let me break down this one.
Yeah.
Like, again, engaging, summarizing, or paraphrasing as an active listening tool. You're saying to them, hey, can I repeat this back to you and correct me if I'm misunderstanding anything here? I'm open to being corrected.
Yes, and that was the key, is that I'm going to say what I think I understood, and you're going to catch me where I didn't. And I'm open to hearing that. I'm not here shutting down. I want to hear it because I'm trying to connect. I'm trying to understand and figure out where our disconnect is.
So invite is invite is the biggest like advice I could give people, and your invitation comes with your wording, right? Mm-hmm. So when you say, can I paraphrase? Can I repeat back to you what I think I understood? Mm-hmm. And you say something to the effect of, and you're going to catch me if I'm wrong. You're ordering, first of all. So we're not inviting at this point. We've given them a job. Instead of saying to them, and can you correct me if I'm misunderstanding something along the way? That's an invitation.
Perfect. Yeah. That's what we want to do. We want to bring them by inviting.
All right.
Love that, Kelly. The most important thing to me is to understand and connect to you. Please know that that is my intention as I'm listening to you.
Okay, so beautiful script just to lay out your intention before you even maybe have to ask them a question. I think it's just nice for people to know that you're here as an active listener.
It may be my feelings of inadequacy that prevent me from fully hearing you. Please know I'm trying.
Okay.
It may be my feelings and my beliefs from my past that prevent me from fully hearing and understanding you right now.
Okay, so these are all great scripts to say to someone. You've actually got to be doing some reflections in terms of your feelings and your thoughts, your emotional resistance to a conversation to know if any of these things are actually true and
Yeah.
your issue or your obstacle.
Yes. It may be that I'm projecting onto you, fill in the blank, and that is why I cannot understand you, because I see someone else here.
Okay, so
Ooh, I forgot to read one part of that. Let me finish. I am trying to see you, and it is difficult for me. That was all part of that. So let me read that again, Kelly. It may be that I am projecting onto you, fill in the blank, and that is why I cannot understand you, because I see someone else. I am trying to see you, and that's difficult for me.
okay. So in that statement, while it's healthy and you're checking yourself and whatnot, it's now become about you and not about the other person.
That's right.
Just so we're aware. This is no longer about I am working to understand you. It's I'm in my shit and not able to.
Yeah.
So these would be conversation enders to me, as opposed to because now the focus is no longer on that person who was doing the speaking, but is on you and your stuff.
Right. And like you say, it can be a conversation ender in a really good way.
Yeah.
Where you simply can say, oh, I realize I'm not being present to listen to you. I need time to walk away and to deal with me. And I could come back to this conversation this evening, or I can come back to this after my next therapy appointment, right? Because this is like, we can't just walk away and know that and then not do any work after we know that. So if you can't do the work on your own to go, oh, geez, that was my father, that was my relationship with my mother. And I'm trying to have this conversation with my partner, but this is how I conversed with my mom all the time. And I'm just repeating the same thing. I just feel fucking stuck again. You can't just know that and then come back to the conversation that evening and have the same conversation again. If you're doing that, that's when you have to be able to go, well, wait a minute, we're back at the very same spot. I'm still not listening and understanding you. I'm still projecting my mom or my dad onto you. This is when we have to know I have to go to therapy to actually talk to someone else and get through that, and then be able to come back to my partner with a different way of being able to be in the relationship with them for who they are and with my new tools to be able to communicate. Otherwise, we're still stuck. Okay. Excuse me. Are we debating or are we arguing? Am I open to this debate? Am I only willing to argue?
Okay, so who are you asking this question to?
Well, I think that we can be asking this question of ourselves and in the conversation to the other person. I think
Yes.
it's both.
I agree. I'm just asking you to clarify what your intention was.
Both.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of people don't check themselves to see that, oh, I just want to fight. I just want to argue. And they don't realize that they are in the forms of verbal abuse to just hold a person there so that you can continue to fight and get your feed. And some of you are coming to a conversation thinking that you are riffing off each other's ideas. And the point is to debate, go back and forth to find a solution, let's say. So to say to the other person, like, hey, what is it you're looking for? Are we here to debate? Are we wanting to go toe to toe and have a healthy, great argument? Or is it that you actually are just, wanting a listener? Or what role am I playing?
Oh, Kelly, this one in particular is one of the ones that I've loved most in the last 15 years of my life, where I have to question that in myself quickly in a conversation because we're talking about just every conversation, right? And like where I have to catch myself and decide, oh, wait a minute, am I here arguing something or am I here debating something? What am I doing? Where am I at emotionally and in my mind? And where all of a sudden I might think I'm in a debate with somebody, and all of a sudden they're in an argument stance and something has flipped a switch in them. And I am able to, and I'm so glad I'm able to learn to do this, that all of a sudden I get that in that little moment. And it's like, oh, we just went from debating to arguing. Oh, okay. And then I get to make a different decision about my participation in that conversation. And I notice that's when, oh, I have boundaries now. I notice and can access those things, the healthy parts of myself, to say, okay, do I want to stay in this? How do I want to be in this?
Yeah, I think it's really important to consider as well that there are people who will get into a conversation with another person, both with very low to little emotional intelligence, and not realize that you, as the speaker originally who entered into the conversation, simply wants to communicate something, right? A what? You're not actually entering into debate. You just literally want to say or tell them something that happened in your day, a decision that you made. You're just informing them. And then that individual comes back with a sort of debate comment. And all of a sudden, as the speaker, you're in a debate when that was never the intention to begin with. And neither of you are clear on why you're in this conversation or this situation. So
Yeah.
again, this goes back to our active listening and healthy speaking. We did 2 separate months of this. That you've got to be clear on when you open your mouth, what is it you are trying to communicate? What role do you actually want them to play? Or else you will end up in debates unintentionally, where if you have the emotional intelligence and self-awareness, you can sit there and say, I'm not debating this with you. I'm telling you what happened. I'm not here for your personal opinion to debate if I did the right thing. I'm telling you what I did. And if you don't want to hear that, we don't have to have this conversation. But I'm not going to sit here and argue with you.
I love this. Yeah, that's awesome. Am I being curious? Or am I being rigid?
Ted Lasso, be curious, not judgmental.
Oh, I like that. Oh, that just made me so happy. The reference to Ted Lasso. Yeah, that's really good. I like that. And which virtue can I bring to this conversation? Oh, I just loved that one. Because if I just think about it, sometimes even if I'm in the middle of the conversation, like you just said, like what we were talking about, where something can all of a sudden just change. And it's like, okay, sometimes I need to go back, and I enjoy doing that. And I think about, okay, which virtue or what part of me do I really want to sink into here in this conversation?
All right. I want to do something here.
Oh, go.
I'm excited. So the topic is understanding the other.
Yeah.
This was something I had to learn, and I'm still digesting. I want to mix everything that you're talking about into one situation.
Okay.
Kat started talking to me about something that was happening in her separation, and she was being treated very unfairly. And I was listening. I was the active listener in this conversation. And she's very attuned to my emotional experience and other people as well, but it was the two of us in conversation. And she could see my anger just like rising to the surface, and she can see my metaphorical steam coming out of my ears. And she was like, what do you need in this conversation? And I was like, no, you're the one talking. This is about you. What do you need? And she was like, I need you to be all of you. And I was like, oh boy. Okay. So that means me like unleashing the anger about how I'm feeling about what you're saying and how you're being treated. And she was like, yeah, go. And so I never anticipated that my anger could potentially be a virtue. Okay.
Yeah.
So
I get this.
What I did, or what I've done several times throughout the relationship, is to list all of the reasons that what she was telling me had occurred made me angry. So I was talking about the injustice of how she was treated, the forms of verbal abuse that were occurring. And I was pointing out the situation with a lot of clarity and why that made me, pull out your emotional wheel, third tier of certain kinds of like just ferociously angry. Okay. And I looked at her sheepishly because like you unload that anger and a lot of people can't handle it. It makes people very uncomfortable. And I was like, are you okay with all of this? And she was like, everything that you just articulated about why you're angry makes me feel understood.
Yes.
Makes me feel clear about my feelings.
That's right.
Because how I was summarizing the situation with emotional congruency, okay? Like meaning that the level of anger for the situation was congruent, not disproportionate, allowed for her to feel understood.
Yeah.
So there will be many ways that you can help someone be understood. Sometimes that's letting them talk. Sometimes that's summarizing what you heard. Sometimes that is sharing the perspective of how you see it, right? But the checking in with that individual is the most important part.
I've been in the same situation as Kat with you,
Yeah.
where, and I can speak to that, where because you've been verbally abused, you don't know, you are second guessing your own feelings. You can feel that level of anger that you were expressing, but you don't know if you have a right to access it. So you compartmentalize it, or I don't know, you try and access other feelings like sadness.
Well, a lot of it's reframing too, right? You're trying to reframe what
Yes.
happened so that you don't have to have the feelings because they feel
Yes.
overwhelming or confusing.
Right. And then someone comes along and says, that infuriates me, that enrages me. And all of a sudden you have access to those emotions again because it's like, right.
Yeah, you're safe to feel them.
Yes, you feel safe. You're not going to be gaslit. You don't need to compartmentalize and shut down. All of a sudden you have the ability to access that.
Yeah.
It is extremely healing. Just as a slight reference out of this podcast, Patrick Tehan on YouTube does a lot of talk about that, and as a therapist about what you just talked about as well, Kelly. And in that particular situation that you just described and how it unfolds and how healing that is in that process that you gave Kat that day and that you've given me many times in life.
Yeah, and I mean, a check-in could simply be, can I rage on your behalf for a second?
Yeah, right.
Right?
That makes me angry for you.
And I can ask, is that okay? Is that
Right.
okay for me to express in this conversation?
Yeah.
Okay, you got like 15 minutes. Let's go.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I think we're getting very close to being done.
Okay.
Oh, one of the things, what differences between us can I tolerate?
Okay, that's an inward question.
Yes.
Whew, just to be clear. Inside voice.
I didn't even think of that. I just assumed it, but that's really funny that you clarified that. Oh, that's awesome.
Could you imagine saying out loud, I am deciding which differences in the two of us I can tolerate at this moment? Some of you will have safe enough relationships. I could say that to your face, actually.
Absolutely.
I'm advising them not to.
And I absolutely know that I could say that out loud and that you would die laughing. Like, I totally know that.
Accurate.
And this is how much I've healed in this lifetime. I'm pretty certain I've said things similar to that.
Yeah.
And then been able to laugh about it. And I think that's beautiful. And I hope that the patrons hear that because they might go, okay, that's a relationship goal that I can get to that level with somebody that like that level of safety that I could make that kind of comment and have giggles over it and that it's not offensive.
Yeah. I also want to say too, like, that's a really wonderful question to ask yourself because you may decide in this moment, oh, I am now shutting down and I need to actually literally shut down the conversation. So I know, because this question and whatever answer you come to is going to create an entire flow chart of how is this conversation going to be able to proceed, right? So for example, if I'm talking to someone about, leaving a marriage, right? Just as an example off the top of my head. And, it was an abusive relationship and I decided to leave. And they turn around with, well, a good wife stands by her man. Okay, my brain is doing all kinds of shifts and labyrinth things to be like, I cannot tolerate this difference in this person. No matter how many similarities we might have, no matter how much I can still treat this person with dignity and respect, that statement alone tells me everything I need to know about the fact that I will not be understood and we will now be in a gridlock, right? Of differing opinions where I'm only going to be fed shame. Therefore, safest thing to do is exit that conversation. So that question, how much difference can I tolerate between the two of us, is a really healthy question to be able to say, you know what, I'm going to stop you right there. Let's move on to something else, or you know what, it's time for me to go. And again, depending on context, we can excuse ourselves appropriately.
Yeah. I know that one question is something that hit me one day in my own kitchen, in my own home when I was married. And when I realized the differences in the two of us, in that moment, in that a particular conversation around something very specific, that it was one of my light bulb moments that I was not staying. Because I remember just looking and going, I cannot tolerate the difference between us. I cannot. What he was willing to do to someone else was something that I could not tolerate.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh my God. And that's going to be me someday. So it was like, oh, no, 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 no. I cannot be here.
Okay. So you're bringing it into the context of a relationship, and I'm
Yeah.
bringing it just in the context of a
Yes.
conversation where
Yes.
you need to shut a conversation down.
I understand.
I'm explaining it for them.
Oh, got it.
Jesus.
Here's another one. If I say this, what will it do to my relationship with this person?
That red flag, people pleasing question. They ask that all the time. Answer the fucking question and then be an adult about what it's going to do to the relationship. So if it's going to cause conflict, you've got to go in and understand that conflict is healthy, right? That question alone is not where you stop and stop yourself from saying certain things, because hard things need to be said. Difficult feelings need to be dealt with. If we're only asking, well, what will it do to the relationship, and we don't feel comfortable with the answer, that might stop us from actually doing what needs doing.
You've gone in one direction here that was part of the rest of this.
Yeah.
That you've handled, so I won't finish that.
Okay.
No, you did a great job. It brings it right into the next one actually, Kelly, because it was around the people pleasing. So we'll move that one too. Thank you. I've got how much long time?
You have 7 minutes.
Oh my gosh. Do I respect my partner as much as I want them to respect me? It's one of them. And
Okay,
now,
what are you doing with that question?
I don't know. I can't remember. I just see it here, and it stands out here as like doesn't fit in with the rest. So I'm not certain.
Really doesn't, because honestly, I would just end it at, do I respect this person?
Yeah.
Because if your answer is I don't, or I can't feel the ability to be respectful in this moment, exit stage left.
Right. Yeah. And then I wrote a couple other ones down here, Kelly, about being able to check in with your own people pleaser and see if the people pleaser is stopping you from actually trying to connect to the other person. And you kind of handled that.
Am I people pleasing?
Yes.
Am I avoiding discomfort?
Yeah. Oh, here's one that I like. Do I create safety for this person to actually speak to me with truth and honesty?
Great self-check-in.
Yeah. And do I communicate in such a way that lets the other person know that I will be here after the discussion?
Okay, so that's a great reflective question. If we're going to take it into a script, that can look something like, hey, just want you to know we can revisit this conversation anytime. Just because we're choosing to end it here, you can bring this up whenever you'd like.
Yeah, and I know sometimes like that when you and I have had discussions in the past, especially when I was really first learning to come out of my unhealthiness, you would say, hey, you would give me a time. You would say, hey, I have time Tuesday at 2, Thursday at 7. Like you would give me specific times and invite me to those conversations and say, I realize that you need time right now. I don't have time for the rest of the day, Mom or Karen. I'm at my desk. I'm with clients. You would say what? Which helped me understand I wasn't being abandoned, which helped me understand how much I had been abandoned in my childhood and in my marriage, in conversations, friends, coworkers, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And it was like, no, you would say, look, I've got a phone call. I've got this to do today. I can come back to this conversation, or I can text you some opportunities over the next couple of days and you can pick one. I look forward to still discussing this with you. Oh my God, Kelly, I walked away realizing probably like the first time in my life that I wasn't just being dismissed permanently.
Yeah. I'll say too, just for listeners, like the schedule talk that you're referencing is not as necessary as the invitation to return to the conversation.
Right.
So it's cool that I did those things and that was helpful. But if this is like you're hanging up the phone or you don't see them very frequently, like it's helpful enough to just simply say to them, look, don't be afraid to bring up this conversation again. Don't be afraid to reopen this topic. This is something that I'm happy to keep having dialogue about.
Yes, and I'm adding to that to say that I also needed the time schedule because I didn't believe that.
Okay.
I'm saying that there are people at certain levels that have been so dismissed so repetitively all through their lives, they would never believe you.
Yep.
And I was one of them. I would never have believed that.
Okay.
It was when you said and texted me Tuesday at 2 and you gave me the schedule that some part of me came back to me.
Okay.
And said, and I mean that when I say some part of me came back to me.
I love that. I just wanted to point out that for some people, the schedule will feel like, oh my God, I have to have all my thoughts together by 2 p.m. tomorrow because we're going to talk about this again.
Yeah.
And that isn't the whole point.
Yeah.
It is, we can come back to this. We can pick a time, we can pick a date together that works for the two of us, even if it's in a month from now. This doesn't have to be a conversation that's wrapped up with a bow in 24 hours or 48 hours.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Okay. I wrote one down here, and I know we're getting near the end, so this will be our last one. I wrote down, are we dismantling constructive structures like religion, politics, family, belief systems, or are we dismantling us?
Cool.
And can we see the difference and address this together? So like all of a sudden in the conversation, can you go, oh, whoa, I think we're not talking about picking up the shoes and picking up after myself. I think we're talking about family systems. I think we're talking about my beliefs in family structures, or, oh my God, I've got really old, archaic. I saw my dad dump his shit at the door, so I dump my shit. But wait a minute, but we're us and we get to decide, and I don't have to do what my dad did. I'm here for us instead of, I think you're just picking at me and I can dump and I'm going to get into this fight. So I think why don't we end that one today or this series today on that one where we really question what we're discussing and how we're really truly trying to connect and what it's over.
I just got really happy because I forgot for a split second that I do a Q&A on this, on SIPS every month. And I'm so fucking excited to actually do the Q&A live with everyone because I can only imagine what these fun questions are going to be like. So staying focused on like, hey, is what we're trying to hash out our underlying belief system so that we can fix a system for the two of us? Or is it that we're trying to make one of us right and the other person wrong?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And I see this all over social media, that they've made this a huge thing for people to fight about right now on social media, where they take pictures of little things that are, where there's a discrepancy, like picking up after yourselves, but they make it about men versus women or husbands versus wives.
Oh, yeah.
And then they throw it out there, and I see all kinds of people creating accounts to particularly start those types of fights without really going deeper into it And I see
Well,
in social media
on
all the surface
purpose.
fights.
It's on purpose. Divisive content creates conversation.
Yeah.
Conversation creates time on the platform. The more time you're on the platform, the more money they get.
Absolutely.
So it's just the way that they're marketing and advertising things in order to hold you there, right?
Yes.
If we are looking at actual issues, which they have no interest in doing, like we're trying to achieve two different things.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, and I wanted to point that out so that people don't get engaged on those sites and don't get engaged in that kind of conversation, because we do it as we're on those sites, and then we get
Carry
right
that
back into
energy.
life and we do the same damn thing
Yeah.
with the people around us.
For sure.
And we don't think we're doing those things. We think when we're picking up the phone that we've got a different kind of behavior, but no, that behavior is actually playing out in our lifetime, right? Yeah. I look forward to your conversation. I will be sitting in the hallway.
Yeah, she eavesdrops on all of those Q&As.
And I love them. And when I was preparing the Sips of Sanity series, I knew you were going to be doing your Q&A on it. And I thought, oh, I look forward to it too.
It's fun.
Yeah. And I look forward to hearing what the patrons get out of it when you read their questions and their comments, because it also, I listen in the hallway to hear some of the struggle or some of the stuff and where it could go into another Sips of series.
Sips of Sanity
Sips
series?
of Sanity series.
Yep, or a book, right? For book club.
Yes.
Cool. Well, that was a lot of fun. Thank you for putting this all together.
You're welcome.